You turn the volume off on your telephone.
Oh, yes. It's always switched off.
We are live. Good afternoon. Welcome to a Friday afternoon live stream with us. Well, hey, Becky and Con. For anyone who doesn't know who we are.
There's a single clap in the studio.
But it needs to be slower. It needs to be
I know. I'm going to bring that energy.
Yeah.
You know, that drive.
As you can see, we have some cameras on the table with us. Yeah, that one with my Peak Design strap lugs on it. But yes, this little camera called the Z8. We have one. Woohoo! We hoped to have one for last week's stream. We didn't. We also were impacted by various industrial action. So anyway,
that's true.
So we got our hands on one now.
And the good news is we still have it compared to like 99.9% of the whole population of the world.
That's right.
You know.
Everyone else had to send it back.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about lots of other things as well. We also have on our table here a Z7 II. So if any of you are curious about size comparison, we're going to have a look at that. And then we have the Z9, the trusty Z9, the beast, the mother of all, mother of dragons.
That mother of dragons.
If you haven't liked the stream already, please give it a like. We'll get there eventually. We need to get into the groove a bit. I'm waiting for the music to start.
All the dancers come in, the lighting. Exactly. I don't have a laptop, so I'm going to read your comments from this.
That's actually the missing element here, is that I'm expecting, I feel like there's something missing.
Exactly.
It's because you're looking at your phone. That's distracting.
I'm not texting. Well, I do, but you know, I'm not. I'm reading your comments actually.
Honest. So first up, hello to everyone who has joined us. That was like 3 minutes of nonsense right there. We're really pleased to have you here. Thank you for being here on a Friday afternoon, taking some time out of your day to join us and talk about cameras. Today we're going to sort of talk about the Z8, of course, but we're also just going to discuss what could possibly be next.
Yeah, because that's it. Camera has been announced. It's going to come out next week. So now we can speculate for the next release for another 2 years. So that's just, you know, how internet works nowadays. But if you have a Nikon Z8 question that we can check, then definitely do put QQQ at the front, ask us questions. We will try to find out. There was a question about the preamps for audio on for Z8. Unfortunately, we looked for this info. We can't find this information at all.
No.
Overheating, it seems like the big thing on the internet that's been exaggerated through the roof. I'm going to do some testing on weekend, and maybe, if you're lucky, we'll have also video to add so you can watch reaches, mutts, you know, and hopefully our videos on overheating. But from what we've been using it so far, for our regular filming, we haven't noticed anything. So to be honest with you, it does feel a little bit overblown on the internet, because how many people need to record 8K at 60 frames in analog for like 2 hours straight? You know, just look at the data, you know, the amount of data the camera's producing. You know, if you are that person, you're probably 1% of all people who will consider this camera. So, you know, but we'll do some testing as well. I think it's going to be fun.
We will. So stay tuned for that. We will do that over the course of the weekend. As I said, Con is going to take it with him and do that. A few people are saying, like, can't wait for my Z8. Mitch said, can't wait for my Z8 to be delivered. So as far as we know, the deliveries are going to start mid to end of next week, which is quite exciting. We kind of already have prepared ourselves mentally, physically. The guys downstairs are doing training to make sure that they can lift all those boxes.
I took a holiday, so I'm going to be off for that week.
That's
you know.
right. He's not going to be here.
So it's called strategic placing of your holidays.
But it should be quite an exciting week coming up. Andy asked a question which I now can't find, but he did ask a question that said, did other Z camera grips have the ability to take the ENEL 18 batteries in them? And the answer is no. As of yet, there is not a Z camera with a grip, and we have two. We have the now we have three, but we have the MBN10, MBN11, and now we have the MBN12. None of those allow for the adaptability, let's say, of putting an ENEL 18 battery in there. So it's not something that we had before that we're now missing. It just has never existed.
You don't come close to me. Just framing us a little bit.
No.
By the way, Andy said that the arms on Z9 and Z8 are technically the same. Andy, if you can send me a link when you get a moment, if you have this information, if you just forward my way, because I definitely want to look into that.
That's great. Because the question is from someone who is a D850 user who's currently using it for video. A D850 used for video. See, and we're like, people are worried about.
Well, remember when we had the 850 launch? We went to this big studio somewhere in Hackney. This chap who is a commercial, professional fashion photographer. We went to his studio. It was fun.
The 850 or the 810? I think that was the 810.
You're right. So forget what I said. Moving on. No, but the point is, he used this camera for video work, for his experimental kind of fashion type of music videos, and the cameras were absolutely fine for their use. And obviously now we have the technology that allows us to have autofocus at the same time, which is a huge improvement, I would say.
Yeah. 2 questions from 2 different people. Paul said, is Becky going to upgrade her Z6 to a Z8? And Edward said, will Konstantin save for the Z8? I'm starting right now.
Yes and no. I'll tell you why. Okay. Definitely, this is the camera that I want to use for event type of work. So anywhere where I need autofocus. So events, like I don't do weddings, but this kind of gatherings, etc. So this is going to be a perfect camera for that. I do deep into 100 megapixel sensors cameras at the moment, so I do use those for studio work. So I don't think this will replace that. But all other work that is not studio related, definitely would be a perfect kind of camera for that. So that's the thing. I'm spoiled of having high resolution sensors. So, for me, like, as I said, like, I wish that would be a little bit higher resolution, but it's not. For what it is, it's perfect. So as I say, like, probably this camera would do like 70% for the work I do. And that for that 30% is going to be the 100 megapixel camera. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And my answer to that question is, honestly, I would, because I was playing with this yesterday and we had, just to give you a little insight, we had Z8 2470 2.8 and 70 to 200 with the TC 1.4 on it. And then we had Z9, same setup. We were basically switching lenses between these 2 cameras. And the Z9 with the 70 to 200 on it, I really felt that. Like, it definitely dragged me down. This is weirdly okay. It's like, that was actually really well balanced with both lenses. But the 2470 2.8, it was fantastic.
It's perfect. I mean, it's such a nice balance.
But I came to this realization. The Z8 is to this as this is to this.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize. So the Z8 is 910 grams. The Z7s and 6s of the world are about 630 grams. The Z9 is 1,340 grams. So there's like 400 grams between those guys, and there's 300 and a bit grams between these 2. But I didn't notice that as much as leaping from a Z6 to a Z9, as it's a huge amount of difference. And
I want to talk about the grip as well. We're going to introduce this segment into all our podcasts now. It's called MBN12 is so ugly that, and there's a joke after that, okay? But
all in good
face, obviously. So, but the thing is, when I said, I don't like the aesthetic look of the grip, but when I'm going to buy this camera, it's highly likely that I will buy that battery pack, because when I had the 850, I had a BD12.
Yeah.
And I had the use of it. I didn't use it all the time, but when I needed, I used it. So it is highly likely that if this camera becomes mine, not this particular, but Z8, then the battery is going to be part of my purchase. That's for sure. So when I say I don't like it, don't take it from the say I don't recommend it to purchase it. No, from functional point of view, it's there. But from a aesthetic point of view, yes, I think there are more beautiful grips around. David mentioned F6 grip and B40, which is beautiful grip. So yeah, I wish they would take inspiration from those.
It's like one with the camera almost when you
exactly.
It's a different ideology behind the grip, I think. I have a question. So Champagne Sumo said, should I trade my D6 for a Z8? This is a really interesting question. If you use those cameras, D5, D6, etc., for low light photography, they are still going to outperform 45 megapixel sensors. So it really depends on what you do. We do have a couple of sort of semi-professional wildlife and sports photographers from our ranks of Nikon owner, the magazine you see behind us. And I have had several conversations with a number of them who've said, I'm keeping my D5 or I'm keeping my D6 for my low light work, and then I'm going to run my Z9 or now Z8, depending on what they're going for my high resolution sort of when I want to take birds in flight, but it's not like in the middle of the night or something.
Yeah.
I'm not doing indoor work. So the low light performance of those cameras still cannot be beaten, I think.
Yes.
It's just the sensor.
I want to add to this that some of us, as people say, I'm blessed, yeah. So, but some of us are privileged to have 2 cameras for their setups. So they can pick and choose the cameras with its own strengths for one use and second camera for its strengths for the other use. As you said, a low light camera and a high resolution camera.
Yeah.
Now, that's not majority of people. Majority of people will look for one camera to have.
Yeah.
Obviously, we recommend a backup if you're a professional photographer. But majority of people will buy one camera. And in terms of this, if kind of price bracket allows you to acquire Z8s, it's a really good value for money for the tech you get. Yeah. It's not affordable. It's obviously you need to have a budget for that. But for what you get for that price, it's a really good option. But yes, for some people who can add the camera, low light camera, high resolution camera, then then you get the best camera. Like as I say, this is what probably would do 70% of all work I do. And technically it can do the other 30% really, really well.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky enough to, to have something else that I can use for that type of work. That's all it is. And, if you're in that position, then, you've got options for sure.
Yeah, precisely. Have to say a big, big thank you to Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian.
Where's your Coffee Fund contribution gone?
Okay, I've got Jeremy, I've got Adrian, and I've got Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the contribution to buy camo stickers to try and hide the ugly grip. So just to finally answer Paul's question, Coffee Fund is open. Well, Becky Z8 Fund is open, but no, I'm not in a position where I can buy a Z8. I will stick with my Z6 for now.
Yeah, I think for us, we generally tend to buy secondhand.
I do always buy secondhand cameras.
Yeah, so like the Z6s we both have, they actually came from Mark Roberts'
motion control.
Motion controls, yeah. So they had actually, when we got them, they had a special film, but so that was fun. So we tend to buy kind of secondhand items. So generally, I think, if we get a nice one coming in, then, as I said, I called my first dips on this, but if you're going to be in a financial position to afford, I'll let you have first.
Oh, thanks so much. Considering that
I am very generous today. It's Friday after all.
Considering that RZ cameras essentially get used 90% of the time for our YouTube
That's true.
content creation. We end up swapping cameras a lot of the time anyway. And then he always complains about my settings when we're out and about.
I can't stand Becky's settings. She customized it so much that I press the button and it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
It's like an ongoing thing. It's like, where's your white balance function too? Why?
Setup menu, reset to factory settings. No, we don't do that.
But anyway, so it's this ongoing thing. But it would be worth having a Z8 for the channel, don't you think?
It would be worth having 2 Z8s for the channel. One each, I
have an idea.
Yeah? You have the means?
Pitch it. No. We just need to pitch it to some Dragon's Den people and say, this channel.
Dragon's Den people at Nikon UK. Yeah. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
This channel has so much potential. You just need to give us 2 Z8s.
Exactly. Speaking of which, we were 10 subscribers down to reach 19,000 subscriptions. So
wow.
If there are 10 of you in the chat who haven't subscribed yet, please do that, because then we're going to get to 19,000.
Yeah.
And that opens the door probably to CEO of Nikon Japan. I don't know. But, it's good to have a higher number, I would say.
The more the merrier. We
exactly.
do like to sort of continue to expand this community, because it's still very much community, and we really appreciate all of you who come and join us every Friday. It's always a real laugh as well. Thank you to Jean.
Yes, thank you,
for
Jean.
your contribution to the Coffee
Absolutely. And thank you to Ian as well.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Jeremy said no fighting over the first second-hand Z8.
No, I can wait. I like currently Z6 is basically, for me, being used 90% for the video content we create.
Yeah.
So, and the other 10%, is a bit for street photography. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Champagne Sumo asks, how well is the Z8 suited for sport versus Z6 II? I would say the autofocus on the Z8 is considerably faster. So obviously bigger file sizes, which may or may not be your thing, but for everything else, I would say Z8 would be the winner out of that. If those two were, put side by side in a fight, the Z8 would win.
But you also have high efficiency RAW on Z8, which significantly reduces the file size. I mean, the files are not that big anyway.
You got 20 frames per second in RAW.
Yeah. We did this test yesterday together with Z9 and Z8, and it's called Tilly running towards you. So my dog Tilly. So, and Z8 performed, I would say, as well as Z9. So I didn't really see much of a difference in terms of what's focus performance between the two cameras.
No, and we know from past experience, the Z6/Z6 II, they're fine, but it is definitely not as sticky. The point is not as sticky on subjects like dogs, birds, cats, etc. Cats don't run that fast when unless they're like out in the wild.
But they escape really, really well.
They do. SH said, so many people use Peak Design fixings and straps. Why don't the manufacturers do better with what they supply? It's a really great question, actually. We swear by these. I actually swear by the Peak Design straps because I do not like having, and it's a really stupid reason. I love the Peak Design straps, but I also do not like having a strap on every single camera in my cupboard. I have a lot of film cameras, and to have all these straps dangling, and so I just don't like it. So if I've got these, I only need
one strap.
One strap.
Yeah, that's the point, the beauty of it.
I've got one strap that I really like. I've actually got 3 Peak Design straps, one wrist strap, one skinny one for my skinny film cameras.
Yeah.
And then I've got the Slide Light, which is the navy blue one, or midnight blue one that you see in all our YouTube videos. You've got the slightly larger one.
I've got the larger one. I've got the smaller one, which I don't really use. The larger one is the best. It's like basically like a car strap.
Yeah, it's a bit thicker.
And I have a leash, which I hate with a passion. So, but I also have a third party
cuff.
Yeah, the cuff, yeah. And then I have a third-party rope strap, which has the Peak Design attachments.
Where did that come from? Like Etsy?
Etsy, they're custom-made. Because you can buy those buckles that attach to the anchors.
Yeah.
And you can make your own. So, yeah, and people on Etsy, they just make those.
That's really smart. I quite like that.
Oh, the Peak Design just launched Kickstarter for the little, it's kind of a hand grip, but it's like for the fingers, for the smaller mirrorless cameras. So it just started the other day. I mean, I'm sure they ranked up already thousands of dollars, but...
Probably good for like a Z30.
Z30, I think Z6, Z7 would work really well. ZFC as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. John is not a fan of Peak Design straps. Well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
A bit like camera bags. I think everyone is kind of each to their own. Do you know? It's like some people like them, some people don't. You don't like the cuff.
Oh, I hate cuff,
The cuff is really useful if you know you're going to have your camera dangling from your wrist, but it does cut off your circulation.
Yeah. Speaking of hate, it's going to be a 1 hour tirade. No, but like the thing is, what I don't like on the internet, people say, I hate something, but it's like, I hate the whole brand.
Yeah.
I was like, no, there's some, the companies like Peak Design, for example, they have good products, in my opinion, from my use. And the product that I don't like, it doesn't mean I don't like Peak Design full stop. I think their straps are really good. Like, I don't like the cuff, But that's the thing. It's like when you look at those comments where it's like, oh, this and that, or Nikon is this and that. It's like, no, chill,
Yeah. Exactly. Seth points out, and this is a correct answer to the question. Hello, Seth. Wow, that was really loud.
That wasn't mine.
That wasn't you. Okay. He said, brands do what they can to save costs on things like straps and packaging, hence why we get lens bags and not cases or just a piece of cardboard in the box and nothing else. It's about shaving margins. And that is exactly it, essentially. It would be great if we got these beautiful, robust straps with our cameras when we buy them, but I've had multiple brands of strap, and apart from the beautiful, very skinny AN1 leather strap, which came with the Nikon F, I think.
Yeah, that's original Nikon strap, yeah.
Or apart from that, I don't think I've liked any other strap since. So
everyone is personal. Anything straps, accessories, bags, everyone is so personal that, once some people use it for, let's say convenience of use. Some people prefer aesthetic look of their items, So everyone is different. But I can see the comment here is like overpriced PD from John, yeah? And without those straps by PD, you wouldn't see many knockoffs that are trying to replicate exactly the same. So that means they've done something right. It's as simple as that. And in terms of this, company can charge whatever they want, but at the same time, we need to respect what companies do, because if they do something different, they're not copying someone else. I think it makes, like, I have a respect for the companies like this who innovate.
Yeah, and some people say, I just leave all the extra bits and bobs that I get with the camera in the box, and I use all my third-party stuff because it's. Yeah. I think I do the same thing. I leave everything in its packaging that I don't need to take out. USB-C cables, all that kind of stuff can stay in the box because I've already got everything ready to go. So I'm with you. But yeah, different people like different things.
Exactly. Everyone's so different. That's the thing. It's
who does a really nice strap is Aperture UK. I don't know if they still make them, but I hope that they do. They made these custom leather straps, a bit like Hawksbill, but cheaper. But they were proper leather straps, and they were super supple and soft. So if you like a leather strap, then have a look at Hawksmill or Aperture. If you like a kind of bungee style strap, then you've got Optec. So,
I like Optec USA neoprene stuff. They're fantastic. Yeah. They're so comfortable. They don't look very good, but the cost and and they're so comfortable. Like the one that I use is actually like a cuff style.
Yeah.
But it's a much better implementation of that cuff. So summary strap,
So Natasha, hello Natasha, thanks for joining us on your way to France. Said, did Peak Design create a strap for Nikon for the goodie bag last week? Yes, they did. I saw it on Amy Shaw's unbagging, and I was very jealous. For some reason, we didn't get those. We're not influencer enough to get a swag bag, as they call them.
I was hoping to get a free Z8 on that announcement day, like a goodie bag. But
here's your Z8. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, they're not that generous, no.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of suggestions on straps, which is fantastic. I wanted to go back to the question. Here we go. Luis says, does the old FTZ adapter work better on the Z8? So just to explain the difference, the FTZ has a little tripod overhang, if you like, and it will overhang slightly on this body. The FTZ2, they've just removed that. So I personally would go with an FTZ2. There's no harm in going for an FTZ, but if you're going to put a grip on, it is pointless having the FTZ1 because it will be so uncomfortable. And that's the whole reason why they brought out the FTZ. When they brought out the Z9, not that everyone's got large hands, but the FTZ would just basically fill up that space.
You won't be able to shoot basically vertically.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that still do. They kept their FTZs and they were like, it's fine. I don't know why everyone's complaining. But Nikon just wanted to have a foresight to know that it wasn't going to be ergonomic for a lot of people. And also, I think, personally, I find that the FTZ tripod collar doesn't always work on all lenses, like the 200-500, for example. You would put a tripod on the foot of the lens. You wouldn't put it on the FTZ. That would be just completely silly. It would, I think, compromise the whole kind of ergonomic setup. And a bit with the Z9, you'd probably, for a lot of shorter lenses, put your tripod on the camera, not on the lens. But obviously, if the lens is heavier than the camera, you put the tripod on the lens. That's how it goes. Speaking of tripods, so Three-Legged Thing do these L plates, right? So they're actually updating the L plate for the Z9 to make it so there's like a little adjustment that they're making to make it more secure. They are also going to bring out an L plate for the Z8, which will be great. So if you're a user of Three-Legged Thing products and you're also going to have a Z8 at some point, then rest assured, I have been assured by the folks at Three-Legged Thing that they will be bringing one out. Yeah,
well, people come to like saying Black Rapid. Like I've seen 2 customers with the Black Rapid sling straps that basically the whole thing got screwed itself and the camera fell down on the concrete. So obviously, I don't think it's a Black Rabbit particular design issue. I think it's maybe they didn't attach it properly. But I've seen those in the past, and that's why kind of when I'm thinking about sling straps, you have to be really careful. So
Yeah. You do have to be careful with those.
I saw J50 2470 on the concrete with a prism down because they're hanging like this. Boom. So 2 customers, very similar experiences.
Physiological reaction.
Yeah.
Hank said, when will we see firmware version 4.0 for the Z9? Obviously, we don't know, but we can speculate. When do you think we'll see that?
I think next week when the Z8 officially launched, that's my bet. But maybe I would say within 2 weeks from the launch date.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? It's usually shortly after. I'm actually surprised. I didn't realize we were going to get grips with the launch, but it looks like MBN12s will be coming some.
When kind of we've learned about the existence of the camera, not from the internet, but from the source, we were told that like grip was going to happen at some point.
Yeah, there wasn't even a part name for it at that point.
Yeah.
So we're kind of interested to see that actually there are grips arriving with cameras, which is great. That's very exciting. Nige asked, do you prefer peak design on both camera lugs or one on the bottom? That's if you've got the peak design sort of like wrist strap, not wrist strap thing, the thing that hand grip thing, then the one on the bottom makes sense. Or if you use the capture clip, for example, which I don't use, so I have one on each side, and I use a sort of sling style strap. I just put it across body. That's just me. Okay, so let's see any other questions. John asked, can you set the Z8 to only use the SD card for overflow? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Just with any camera, you can set the primary slot to be your CF Express.
Yeah, so you just set it to SD, and then you set this to overflow, so it will record to SD, and then they move to CF Express, or vice versa. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you just choose which slot it is. I put your SD as your primary slot.
How we do, you know?
It says it sort of seems to vary a little bit, as like 1 minute it's fine, the next.
I don't think it's going to make any difference, but you know, we can try. Yeah, I'm some questions here. So Eric Laurie asks, have sales of Z cameras and S lenses overtaken DSLRs and F mount lenses? Yes, they did long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. Someone else said, is there a card? There it is. Camera off. It's not set by default on the camera. When you get the camera straight out the box, it does not have it as a default option to have the shutter guard down. So we set that up yesterday, but there we go. It is there. So I'm not that panicked about having the body cap off. Wayne asks a great question, which was what we were kind of going to go with anyway. He said, now that the Z8 is out, where do we think Nikon is going with the Z6 II?
Yeah, well, we want to talk about, but since you guys all liked the peak design talk, you know, and because I'm reading the comments and it's like people are on fire about peak design, you know. But yeah, that's what we want to discuss, you know. And Roy says buffering too much that A talk. Don't worry, Roy. Next week we're going to do film only live stream, especially for you.
Just for you. Okay, so to answer your question on the Z6 II and where we think it's going, where do we think the Z6 II is going? Okay,
so we've got Z9, Z8. So then we have obviously Z7, Z6, and Z5. Yeah. The question is, I think I was, frame a question where the 7 is going to be. And that should give us an idea where that 6 should be. But Z6, I don't think our assessment changed from the point that hopefully it's 33 megapixel sensor, fast autofocus, basically technology from Z9 and Z8, and slightly higher resolution sensor. So, but they may stick to 24 megapixel sensor and bring all the, autofocus to the Z6 as well.
Do you think we'll get, sorry, there's a few people with the old, having a problem with our freezing. The question is, if we freeze, do they miss everything that we said?
I have no idea. I can put the audio on.
Well, I can see what we're doing.
I don't think it's going to make any difference, but, we can try. Yeah, some questions here. So Eric Laurie asks...
that's quite a delay.
It's quite a delay.
It just does its thing. Okay, fine. Well, we're going to just keep asking. I mean, we're going to keep answering. Buffering in the USA. Everybody's saying, oh, we've gone. We did actually drop out for a minute there. I saw it said no data. Well, that's fun. We broke the internet.
Good. It's about time.
So I was going to ask you the question. It might need to be that you just go back like a minute and it will have stopped buffering, because all of that data is still feeding through. So I don't know where it's going. It just seems to be dropping. Someone was complaining about the fact that it will be backlogged forever. No, it won't be. It's not like the Z9, thank goodness, which is...
Well, we kind of know how many units are coming, which we can't share with you.
No.
So, but it's a good amount of units are coming on day one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone said that it is... So actually, David said someone at the shop is downloading Jedi Survivor, which is 250 gig.
Well, I hope it's that and not something else more spicy.
Yeah, exactly. the internet.
Like Becky's book.
It's not spicy. Okay, so back to normal now. I've told everyone to get off the internet.
Just, switch off the taps,
Just stop and see if it will work.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to answer that question about the Z6 II.
So, yeah.
Well, my question was, do you think, because we had for a while a 36 megapixel sensor in the D800 and the D810. So
yes.
Do you think our staple 24 megapixel sensor, which we've had in full frame Nikons for a good long while now, do you think that we'll eventually get a bump up to at least like 36 megapixels?
Well, I was saying a long time ago that 24 megapixel sensor is becoming, resolution-wise, is becoming quite small. I mean, we had it as our kind of a standard resolution for how many years now? Easily 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, if we think the D600, I think, was the first FX body with 24 megapixels in it. That came out in 2013. So that's 10 years.
So, yeah. So I personally think that it would be nice to have a slight bump. And there's a talk about 33 megapixel sensor. Don't know about 36 megapixel. Yes, we had the D800 and D810. We haven't seen any cameras with the same resolution sensor after that. So, that's where my concern is. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to have a 24 megapixel, stacked BSI sensor with a really fast readout that gives you all the goodies of autofocus system and buffer and frame rate, as well as amazing low light performance.
Yeah.
So if they stick to this, then I think it's going to be acceptable to have a 24 megapixel sensor. Again, me, I always try to, hope to get this slightly more resolution if we can.
Yeah.
Andy, that's what it is.
Andy said Z6 III should be 26 megapixels to allow for 6K.
There you go.
And could be produced soon with the same sensor as the XH2S, but with 30 plus megapixels. You have to wait. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd love to hit about the 30 megapixel point personally. That's just me. That's not necessarily useful for everyone. So I can understand why, let's say, 24, 26 seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of people. We have to just say a huge thank you to Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
And to Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
For your contributions to the Coffee Fund. Super appreciated. A few people are asking about autofocus. Sorry. Let me just answer this question really quickly. Richard said, does the Z8 come with a charger in the box? Yes.
Yes.
It does.
That's the thing. Some of the manufacturers don't include the charger anymore because you can effectively plug it into the wall with USB-C connector, but as well, if you think about it, well, not many people have USB-C chargers as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's widespread or something like this, but I've got mine probably within last year, but yeah, it would, at least it's a USB-C socket and not like a, different special type socket like we discussed on Nintendo 3DS and all that. So.
Exactly. As we talked about that's just for our audience, isn't it?
For those two people. Yeah.
Andy said, are we recording to both CF Express and SD card and being throttled by the SD card? No memory card in our Z6 II. The data goes straight to the A10 Mini Pro. And so it doesn't matter technically what settings we have on in the camera. It's all that thing's fault. I blame that. Anyway, so a few people asked about the autofocus as compared with Canon. Now, I don't have any experience with the autofocus in the Canon cameras. And from what I understand, they are just different. They're different AF systems. So I don't know if a side-by-side comparison can be done. Who was it that did? Was it Matt Irwin that did a Canon, Sony? No, he compared images. He didn't compare autofocus. But our friend Matt from Down Under may well do one of those comparisons because he does have access to those cameras and could potentially do those tests. He did an amazing video comparing the Z8 to a whole bunch of other things in terms of like file output and resolution and stuff.
Yes, Russell, definitely. I'm waiting for 1 gigapixel camera. That's,
1 gigapixel.
3p pixel, bring them all. I'll take them all.
And then someone asked, have we sold more Z8, same or less than we expected? We have sold far more than we expected, just based on how strong the position of the Z9 has been for us over the last 1.5 years. Honestly, I didn't realize how many people were going to either add a Z8 to their collection or were waiting for the Z8 because they didn't want to go for a Z9 because it's £1,000 difference.
That's true.
Big difference.
I want to go back to megapixel talk.
Joy.
The reason for that, look, that's me.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that what I say is right or wrong. I'm just saying it from my personal perspective, and I could be wrong, but that's what works for me. I'm not trying to convince you that needs. You do you. And and I'll do me. That's the thing. So like it's just when we say something, please understand that we're not trying to convince you anything. It's just we have our own opinions,
and our opinions differ on lots of things. So.
And maybe some people agree with me, and maybe some people don't disagree with me, and that's absolutely no, because we're having a conversation.
Exactly. It's two ways. It goes both ways.
Exactly. It's just I don't want people taking out the pitchforks and just. Witch hunt, honestly.
So Andy made an interesting observation. He said if a Z5 II had 24 megapixels, because Z5 has 24, then Z6 III could have 30 plus, and then 60 plus for the Z7 III, and that would kind of give a clearer demarcation of where these cameras stand.
I think Z7 III with a higher resolution sensor, it only makes sense. Because if you're going to see Z7 III with a 45 megapixel sensor, then a lot of people will be concerned that we are stuck with that 45 megapixel sensor in like next 3 years of release of the camera. So I think it makes sense to have that option for photographers who need that in the same Nikon ecosystem, so they don't need to look at other brands. It doesn't need to be as fast as Z8 or Z9. It doesn't need to have as fast readout as Andy mentioned last week. There's no sensor with 61 megapixel that allows the same speed as the 45 Z8, Z9 sensor, So it could be a slower sensor. We shouldn't get as frame rate, etc. We hopefully will get similar autofocus performance, and it will be designed for that, for that type of people. And that way, you don't need to have £1,000 difference between the prices. You can still have maybe a £500 difference between Z8 and the 7 Mark III. And then people decide, well, if I want all round, I'll get Z8 for £500 more. Or if I need a higher resolution and slightly slower camera, maybe for landscape work or studio work, then I'll get a Z7 Mark III. Yeah. So that's that. And obviously we discussed Z6 Mark III. My concern is actually about the Z5 Mark II. I don't see that happening anytime soon at all.
Which is a shame. There are definitely cameras in the lineup that I would love to see. I'd love to see a Z50 Mark II, or if not a Z50 Mark II, then a Z90, as we sometimes call it, which would be like the prosumer DX camera, just something a bit more robust. The ZFC for me wasn't enough of a change. Obviously, it's got an aesthetic change and a cosmetic change, but in terms of technology, it wasn't much of an advancement over the Z50. And actually, we used both quite recently for various different reviews, and it's not, in practical terms, there's really not much difference between them. So I'd love to see like a Z90, and I'd love to see them do a Z5 Mark II, but at the same price point, because that's the key thing, is that it can't be. Yeah.
So how long do you think it's going to take to get to the same price point with the new technology?
I think we'll probably see a Z6 III before we see a Z7 III and a Z5 III too.
But also the rumor is that ZF full frame, the retro ZF, would come before Z6 and Z7 Mark III. And it will have some beats of the new generation of cameras. That's the rumor that's circulating online. I don't know. Do you think that is visible, or do you think they still, they're like, if we're looking at the, let's say, next camera announcement, what do you think would come out first? Like something like ZF, or something like a Gen 3, one of the either Z6 or Z7?
The ZF, I almost started talking about that in kind of like a joking way.
More speculation, that's the thing.
But it does now seem to be a thing that the internet is talking about quite a lot. And I don't know how I feel about that. A full frame ZFC would be nice. I don't think it should be a priority, but...
I thought you just read Patrick's comment. Full frame ZFC would be nice. Just without looking at the screen.
I just...
Synergy.
Me and Patrick, right?
Umame.
Unagi.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, I heard something.
If you know your friends' references, then you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think it would be a lovely thing to have. Do I think it's priority for Nikon? No, they'll probably bring one out just to spite me now. But I'd like to see a Z6 III before I saw that.
Yeah, I think we need to address this kind of market with a like not necessarily Z7 at the moment, but I think we need to address Z6 market as soon as we can, as soon as it's economically viable for them to release a camera. But we also don't want the camera that is gimped and doesn't have the latest technology. I'm talking autofocus mainly, so that's the thing. It's just that you get used to the speed. It's really nice, and obviously Z6 II and Z7 II cameras, in terms of autofocus, they're actually quite good. And the autofocus is sticky, which is very important. But it's not an action and sports camera. And that's where I think the new AF technology would improve definitely significantly on that.
Yeah, there's a few people saying like they've pre-ordered. So Arnie said very excited, pre-ordered Z8 with 24-120 f4, lovely kit, plus the FTZ. Updating my beloved D7-100, was very close to getting a D850. Really wanted a do everything camera with no low pass filter, as I do lots of macro. Someone else asked earlier, and I'm sorry I've forgotten the name, but it's disappeared off my screen, but said, is it worth buying a secondhand D850 now? Or even a D850 in general, because there's still like over £1,000 difference between a D850 and a Z8. If you are doing fairly static stuff, or your sports and wildlife is not super fast moving, I'm not talking like birds in flight here, because it's totally possible with D850. If you learn your camera really well, you can absolutely do it. But there's all those AI advantages of the mirrorless cameras, the speed, also the lenses. The lenses are amazing on the Z system. So if you want all that, then have a look at the Zs. But a D850, if you do kind of day-to-day stuff, you don't mind the weight of the D850, it is a little bit slower. You prefer the optical viewfinder. You're not relying on the back screen to do your focusing for you. I think the D850 is still a beautiful camera.
And I'm in a camp that would say, don't upgrade your D850 because Z lenses are so much better than F-mount lenses.
No, sure, because we are splitting hairs.
I really don't like this argument, because I think that F-mount lenses are superb lenses. They perform really, really well on the cameras they designed for.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you go in mirrorless, then yeah, definitely, it's the only way. You know, you want to go native glass eventually. You don't need to replace everything straight away. You can still use FTZ adapter. But the argument that you should upgrade your D850 because F-mount lenses are not as good as Z lenses, it's not an argument for me. I think if you like what you get with your camera, stick with it. You don't need to upgrade. Once you're ready for upgrade to what's available on the market at that time.
Yeah, there's a few advocates for the ZF here. Ning says, if they make a ZF, they need to make it bigger with a good grip. The ZFC is really not nice to hold. But it's very stealthy and doesn't intimidate. And Tim said, a ZF would be amazing. I want something I can take out in polite company. And I think that is quite a nice way to put it. Sometimes when you go out even with a camera like this, right? This, when I go out in public with this, that kind of draws the eye. Whereas if you've got something that's kind of a bit more retro looking, you don't look like a serious photographer.
Starts with L, ends on A, you know.
But people will still look at the camera because you're carrying a camera, and it's not like everyone in the world carries a camera around their neck. But at the same time, it might be a bit more kind of acceptable in social situations, I would say.
Well,
but
the good news, yeah, so,
ZFC.
but then you look at this.
Yeah, you've got the pancake.
You know, it's a tiny thing. Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay. I'm used to it. Tim says, I don't want to look like a guy with a camera. Exactly. So the ZFC, I find not super ergonomic. I think it needs the little extra grip to make it comfortable in the hand.
I'm quite happy using FM series cameras, so I think ZFC is going to be as good as that. I really wish they would release a camera that would feel like FM3 in terms of build quality.
Yeah. Because
ZFC has all the looks, but it doesn't feel the same way as FM3, in my opinion, just in terms of build quality, the metal bits and things like this, you know. So I really hope that if you're looking at ZF, then they will give it justice in terms of build quality. So, you know, design it retro. I mean, look at Fuji's. I mean, they're doing really well with their retro designs, and you know, like X Pro series cameras are fantastically built. You know, so I really wish we see that with Nikon. You know, we've got the retro style now. I think the retro style works really well for this type of camera. Yeah. Let's add the build quality to it. Yeah, just to the craftsmanship. You know,
exactly. Because even the DF, I love the DF. Loved the DF, but even then, I felt like it could have been just a bit weightier because it had a metal base, the black one did, at least the chrome I can't remember, and it had a polycarbonate upper portion, and that didn't feel so good to me.
Yeah, the black one actually felt better in terms of build than the silver one.
Materials, Daniel asked, are we disappointed that the Z9 batteries don't fit the Z8 grip like the D850 did? No.
No, the thing is, when we say disappointment, it's, you know,
Yeah.
it depends the level of disappointment. You know, I think it will make sense.
Yeah.
It will make sense to release a battery, you know, but
A door or something.
exactly. I don't see, but I don't really want to think that Nikon specifically designed it to make it different from Z9. I really hope that wasn't the reason, you know, because you could potentially make it, you know, design in the shapes that to take that battery. So there was someone made that decision. I'm sure it came up. It's not like they forgot about it. No. But I'm just puzzled why. Yeah, I agree. That's like, it will make sense to get that just looking at the grips historically. Yeah. You know, so MBD12, you know, MBD10, D300, whatever that was, MBD10 yet. So, you know, grips like this, they did take the bigger battery. So,
but part of that was also not just the battery life, but was to bump the frame rate, which we don't have as a facility on the Z cameras, because it's not necessarily, I think, the power delivery at this point that is the issue with being able to shoot faster. There's no mirror, there's no mechanics involved that then need extra battery life in order to speed up the frame rate. And also with the D850, one of the issues was you get, you know, 51 shots in the buffer. If you jump from 7 to 9 frames per second, obviously your buffer fills up faster, so you just have less time to shoot. So there were always some caveats with it. Looking at the MBN12, I just don't see physically how they could even do that at a later stage, because one battery goes on one side. No, sorry, because 2 batteries go in. I suppose technically they could, but I don't know what that recess is like, whether or not they'd be able to create a door. It would have to be quite a long door that then the ENAL 18 goes in. I just don't know the mechanics of it. I'm not a camera designer, so.
It is what it is, yeah.
So Andy asked, were you happy with the build of the DF?
Black felt better than the silver one, and in terms of build quality, it's better than ZFC. But I think, they could do better still.
Yeah. Sam made a great suggestion. She said ZFC battery grip, but looks like a retro winder. So if you put like if you look at the MD12, MD4s, those cameras, they had like a little winder that goes on. That would be kind of.
But it's quite common, to get the one that kind of a little plate that screws in and it's got a bump at the front.
It needs a bit more than just a little plate, though.
Even Nikon had like a FM. They had a Nikon FM grip. Don't know what the part number, but they did have those. I've seen the really right stuff making things like this for those cameras. So, but I think, we obviously have FM series cameras. We have Canon AE1 or something like this. We have Pentax K1000 in the same form factor. There's so many film cameras that had this design. Obviously, all Leicas M mount cameras, they all have that. But obviously, you can always buy an additional grip if you need that. There's a thumb rest you can buy. I mean, not usable for film camera because of the winder, but you got a digital one. You can buy something like this. Obviously, a lot of people buying thumb rests for their Fuji cameras, as far as I'm aware. So, there's a whole market for that. So I'd say, obviously, I think usability point of view, a camera with a grip is definitely kind of much easier to hold in hands. Yeah. But I'm still happy with the kind of flat design of the cameras. It's just, looks nice.
There's a few people who've said that they got the ZFC GR1 grip, which is the Nikon grip. I have used the small rig one as well. Both of those are actually really nice, and they do definitely add ergonomics to the ZFC. So 100% agree with that. I think that's a nice addition if you buy or have a ZFC. Life Invader asks, how was the battery life on the full frame Z series compared to the D7500? So in comparison to all DSLRs, the Zs have, I would say, a shorter battery life, but the batteries are higher powered. So it's difficult to 100% say, oh, well, the D7500 would let you get 1,000 shots on a single charge. The CEPA numbers are very, very aggressive, I would say.
Yeah, I think it was like 300 something shots.
Way more than 300 shots. So we will go out on a day shoot. We will shoot video almost exclusively on one camera and stills on the other camera. I will usually be able to do a couple of those days out of shoots with one battery. I don't charge it in between, and it's fine. And it varies from one day to the next what we're shooting with.
Yeah, we normally film for about, 4 or 5 hours. And we go through 1.5 batteries for video work.
Yeah. And
the stills, it's fine. Yeah.
yeah, stills I can easily, use the same battery for multiple days.
Speaking of the batteries, the one thing that people complain about Z8 is the battery life. Yeah, so you're looking at probably 600-700 stills, per charge. Now, the good news is the batteries are 70 pounds or 60 pounds, depending where you can find them, compared to 150 pounds for ENL 18 batteries. So for me personally, it's not an issue, for photography point of view. And if you're recording long takes, you can always get the AC adapter, which will give you power delivery, and you can use that for longer periods of time. Or even, let's say, if you're doing, what do you call it when you record short every minute? Time lapses. You do time lapses and things like this. So there is a thing for that. But the batteries are reasonably inexpensive. And I have 3 batteries I normally work with, 2 spare ones, 1 in camera. For me, that's a normal setup. And I would recommend, if you are buying any of Z series cameras, not the Z9, but the other ones that take an L15 batteries, get a spare one as like you would buy a memory card, buy a spare battery, just for the peace of mind more than anything else.
Yeah, Tim says, FYI, I've shot up to over 1,500, maybe 2,000 photos on a Z7 II on a single charge at weddings.
Here we go.
The SEPA numbers are there as like your worst case scenario when they really, they turn all the things on and then take off a bit extra, just for good measure. But they're not necessarily 100% accurate in real life scenarios, I would say. Andy said, as Rishi demonstrated, the ENL 18 won't fit in the gap on an MBN. So that's probably not going to happen. Gary just got a small rig L bracket for the Z6 II. I think you've got that one, do you?
It's good. It's good.
I've got the 3-legged thing one, which makes my camera look cool because it's orange.
Yeah.
but it's also, it kind of just adds a little bit of extra, but it's on the other side. So all it does is it adds a bit of extra to the bottom, and then you've got the L plate on the side where the ports are. It doesn't affect the grip for me. Does the camera start up fast like Z9? It's
done.
Instantaneous. Actually, the Z8 was faster. So there you go. Do you want to do it again? I think the Z8 was faster.
Yeah, we're talking about milliseconds really here. So,
but anyway, fast startup time on the Z8. Intrigued to know how my differing aged and version of ENL 14s last with it. So, I don't totally understand that question, but with some cameras, you can go into the setup menu, which is the spanner icon, and you can actually look at the battery info and you can see how old your battery is and how it will kind of last, how it will perform. So that's always worth doing if you've had a battery for a few years and you're finding it discharging quite quickly. You can see if it's actually at a point where it needs replacing. Yeah,
I am starting to save money on that 8 Edward. Yeah, slowly, but I think probably I'm not considering a purchase of this camera at least till probably September this year, just from my financial situation. And obviously I want to get 85 as well, and one has to come first. It's probably 85, so yeah.
So it'll actually be September 2024.
I would love to have them all, definitely. And as I say, I think Z8 would be the camera, like just a perfect all-rounder for any use where you need to, where you need autofocus, basically.
Yeah. There was someone who said earlier, who was it? Ed said that the ZF should be like an F3. I think that would be really nice, wouldn't it?
That's what I'm saying. Give it love, give it build quality.
Make it drunker.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And one of the things, what I'm worried that when ZF comes in, and if we don't see, let's say, Z6 or something like this, like people are not going to look at the camera what it is. People will complain that Z6 is not there. And it's much easier to complain than write something positive. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that? Just, look at the comment section of any video, like camera stuff, So, but what my worry is, ZF comes out and people say, where's my Z6 III? Z8 came out, where's my 200 to 600 lens? Give it a break,
calm down.
We want a lot of things.
We do.
Obviously. And actually, one of the things that Nikon done really well, maybe the camera releases the speed of them, maybe that's not their achievement and not their strength. But in terms of lenses, they actually delivered quite a lot of lenses to fill the system, the Z system in recent year. So they definitely released more Z lenses. They released F-mount lenses in a similar time period.
Yes, yeah, we definitely had those bit more space.
And it all will happen. That's the good news. It all will happen. So when people say huge disappointment, no 200 to 600 lens, there was no room of 200 to 600 lens about Z8 even.
But speaking of the roadmap, because someone asked this question earlier, so we do have the 200 to 600 still on the roadmap. We've got a DX Prime still on the roadmap. What is it? 24 DX?
Sorry?
24 DX is on the roadmap.
Yes.
I answered my own question.
Yeah, 135, 70 to 180.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask that question in a second, David. Any L brackets available for the Z8 Curtis? So Small Rig have got pre-order for theirs?
No, not yet. They've announced it. There's a picture of it. Yeah. But there's a pre-order for the cages.
Yes.
But not L plate yet, but I think that's going to happen.
That's right. And Three-Legged Thing have confirmed that they're working on one.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll see Kirk and Really Right Stuff making their own versions as well.
Yeah, exactly. Who has more cameras between you two? I don't want to count how many cameras. I actually can't count how many cameras. Bearing in mind that most of them are film cameras, I only have 2 digital cameras now. Yeah. I've got a Z6 and a Z50.
I have 2, I have 2 digital cameras.
Mm-hmm. And
the Nikon and the other one.
And the other one that we don't talk about. So film cameras.
Oof.
It's too many.
3 medium formats.
Wow, you have 3 medium format cameras?
Yeah, well, it's going to be 2. I need to sell my Bronica.
Right.
I got ETS RI one. Probably has to go. I'm waiting for it to go up in price, like the rest of them.
I think
sell at the top.
I think I've got 8 film cameras.
Nice.
Or 7. That's really scary.
I think I'm close. I don't think I have as many.
I hope my husband's not watching this.
I mean, I recently got second F100. Just.
Of course you did.
Of course, like.
Because why not?
It was my first Nikon, so I better keep them in pairs.
Yeah.
I mean, the price is so good on F100 compared to the other film cameras.
Yeah.
I just got a second one while there was an opportunity.
Yeah, bearing in mind that most of my film cameras are not expensive film cameras.
Exactly.
They're cheapy ones, but I love them. They all serve.
It's a Gold FA. It's a Year of the Dog FM2.
I've got a Year of the Dog. I've got a Dragon.
SP, Year 2000.
Yeah, and then I've got a Lapita. It's a super rare. We are actually about to wrap up because we've been waffling. I think Russell thinks we made it to 19,000 subscribers.
Yay,
did we do that
so much,
while
guys.
we were streaming?
We appreciate it.
Despite the buffering issue, we have the best subscribers. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
It. If you didn't hit the like button, please do before we go, just to give the stream a little oomph. And Tom predicts that Nikon is building a massive stockpile of 200 to 600s because they know how many people want it.
Here you go.
Hopefully. Yeah. I really hope so.
I'll say, guys, share some love, okay? There's so much negativity on the internet.
Yeah, just in general.
It's Friday. Let's stay positive. Let's have a great weekend.
Yeah.
This is all it's all about, the community.
I want to take pictures. That's
Exactly.
So we have our street photography challenge ending next week.
Next week, yeah. So send your pictures now. I know I'm backlogged for about a week again, so I will reply everyone who sent the pictures. If I haven't replied to you yet, I will. Don't worry. And then next Friday morning, I think cutoff is on Thursday, so that's it. So
just to be safe.
Exactly. And then on Friday morning, me and Becky are going to sit down, spend a few hours, going through all your images, choosing only one per participant.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, I think we're like close to about 150 already. So,
wow.
So we'll try to fit everyone in, and we'll choose the best shots to show you. So definitely do join us. Yeah, do join us for some photography. I'm actually, again, I am very pleased that the quality of work you guys send us is incredible.
Got some good photographers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that just tells a lot about our community that watches the channel.
It does. Right. That's a wrap, folks. Have a lovely weekend. Go and take lots of pictures. We'll see you next week. We'll have a video of some sort coming out this weekend, depending on how quickly I can get it out. And if you have any other questions about the Z8, you can always send us an email.
Yeah.
Call the shop.
Absolutely. I would say if you want us to film a specific video on Z8 that you think is going to be good for community, not something that everyone else did, but if you think something that would be interesting that is not on the internet, then definitely send your suggestions to Media Grades of Westminster. So we will try to film slightly different content from everyone else because there's no point of having the same video out if other people did that. So if you think something cool, definitely let us know.
Yeah. There we go. Have a lovely weekend. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.